The Switch library is bigger than most people realize, and buried inside it are some of the most ambitious, most cinematic, most flat-out stunning games ever made. These are the AAA titles that actually delivered. Building on perfection is supposed to be impossible. Nobody told Nintendo. Tears of the Kingdom takes the open world of Breath of the Wild and doubles down on every axis. Bigger sky, deeper underground, and a physics sandbox so absurdly expressive that the internet spent months posting contraptions that had no right to work. The Ultra Hand and Fuse mechanics aren't just gimmicks. They're the game's soul. You don't play Tears of the Kingdom, you think in it. Metacritic sits at 96, and the user score reflects something rarer. Genuine awe that held up on replay. Monolith Soft helped build the world, which explains the sheer density of it. Every corner hides something. The story, told in fragments through memories, lands harder than it has any right to. This is the Switch's biggest argument. One game. Every system seller cliché are finally earned. There was a before and an after. Before this game, open worlds meant collectible towers and bloated maps. After it, the entire industry started asking why they ever locked players out of mountains. Breath of the Wild shipped at launch in 2017, and nobody has fully digested it since. The physics engine lets you do things the developers never intended. Speedrunners broke it within weeks and are still breaking it. Critics gave it a 97 on Metacritic, the highest-rated Switch game of all time. But what the score can't capture is what happens the first hour you realize climbing anything means anything. Nintendo EAD rebuilt the franchise from scratch, discarding 30 years of design assumptions. The reward shrines, the cooking, the weapon durability drama, all of it polarizing, all of it intentional. Some games set trends, and this one reset the clock entirely. It launched as a disaster and ended up as one of the decade's best games. The Switch port arriving in 2025 was genuinely shocking. Nobody expected CD Projekt Red to pull it off on this hardware. They did. Night City runs. V's story, built over years of patches and the Phantom Liberty expansion, is now a dense, morally complex RPG that asks you what kind of person you are at every turn. The world design is still unmatched. Every alley has lore, every NPC has a schedule. Reddit's r/Cyberpunk game went from grief in 2020 to borderline reverence. Playing this on a handheld, in bed, in portable mode, hits different. You're in a neon dystopia at 11 p.m. and it actually feels right. CDPR's redemption arc is one of gaming's strangest stories. The game they shipped eventually became the game they promised.
Open it.
The faster you live, the faster you burn out!
Turn-based combat has never looked this cool. Persona 5 Royal is the kind of game that makes you rethink what a JRPG can be. Not just mechanically, but stylistically. Every menu transition, every battle animation, every piece of Shoji Meguro's soundtrack is designed to feel like a music video you can't stop watching. Atlus built something with a Metacritic of 95 that Reddit has been recommending as a first JRPG since the day it launched on Switch. The story of teenage phantom thieves navigating a corrupt adult world isn't subtle, but it doesn't need to be. The social sim layer, building relationships with your party between palace raids, makes the combat hits land harder, because you actually care who's fighting. Royal adds a full third semester that recontextualizes everything. Over 100 hours. Almost none of it wasted.
It was a sudden transfer, and your class was the only one that had an opening.
If you're done explaining things, mind if we...
Monolith Soft has been quietly making some of the most ambitious JRPGs in the industry, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is the peak of what they've built. Two nations locked in perpetual war, soldiers whose lives are measured in cycles, and an art-to-science ratio in world design that makes Ionios feel genuinely lived in. The combat is real-time with a depth that takes hours to fully unlock. Classes, interlinking, chain attacks, and the game trusts you to figure it out. It trusts you in general. Long cutscenes, dense lore, emotional story beats that earned those credits roll reactions on YouTube. Metacritic, 89, but the community score tells a different story. This is one of the most beloved Switch exclusives among people who finish long games. The expansion Future Redeemed is a separate, standalone masterpiece that rewards players who've been with the series for years.
This is something decent, right?
Fight with focus!
I practically know this one by heart.
Capcom built a Monster Hunter game specifically for the Switch, and the result is the fastest, most kinetic entry in the franchise's history. Wire bugs change everything. Swinging through the air, repositioning mid-combo, vaulting onto monster backs. Rise moved away from the methodical pace of World and leaned into pure action. The Rampage mode split the community, but the core hunts? Pristine. The Japanese mythology aesthetic gives Rise a distinct visual identity, with Kimura Village being one of the warmest hub designs in the series. Over 13 million copies sold. Palicos got Palamutes as companions, and somehow that alone was worth the price of admission. Sunbreak, the expansion, doubled the endgame and pulled in some of the most challenging monsters Capcom has ever designed. For anyone who bounced off World's slower opening, Rise hooks you in hour one. The remake that nobody asked for became the remake everyone needed. Capcom took one of the most influential action games ever made and rebuilt it with 2023 production values while keeping the things that made the original legendary. The Merchant, the Inventory Tetris, the What Are You Buyin'? Metacritic, 93. The reimagined Ashley segments, the expanded Separate Ways, DLC with Ada Wong, the addition of stealth options, all of it feels like additions rather than compromises. Leon S. Kennedy went from a slightly campy action hero to someone with genuine dramatic weight. The village section still opens with the same energy it did in 2005. Some design DNA is just too strong to dilute. Capcom's RE engine has quietly become the best engine in the industry for this kind of horror action hybrid, and Resident Evil 4 is its masterpiece submission. This is the most insane action game on the Switch, and that's a platform that includes Bayonetta 1 and 2. Platinum Games escalated everything for the third entry. Bigger spectacle, a multiverse structure, giant kaiju demons you control in real time while your alternate selves fight independently. On paper, it sounds chaotic. In play, it's controlled madness. The Viola additions, playing a half-demon with a sword and familiar instead of guns on heels, add a mechanical layer that rewards mastery. The voice acting controversy around Helena Taylor made headlines, but what was left was still a technically brilliant action game with one of the most confident art directions in gaming. Hair-based magic systems, torture attacks that feel genuinely transgressive, and a story that earns its emotional gut punch in the final act. Platinum Games doesn't make sequels often. When they do, they mean it. Nintendo handed one of their most beloved games to a small internal team, gave them a brief, and somehow they delivered a remaster so clean it made Prime 4's announcement feel less important. First-person exploration, zero hand-holding, environmental storytelling told through scanned data. Metroid Prime was always ahead of its time. Playing it in 2023 with dual-stick controls and a 4K-adjacent visual pass proved that. Metacritic, 94. Samus Aran has never looked better. The The Chozo ruins still communicate a civilization's collapse through architecture alone. Retro Studios built something in 2002 that competitors couldn't match 20 years later, and Nintendo wrapped it in packaging that doesn't apologize for being a port. Some remastered games feel like cash grabs. This one felt like a museum exhibit everyone deserved access to. The first Octopath was an experiment. The second is a masterwork. Square Enix's HD 2D style, pixel art characters layered over 3D environments with cinematic lighting, is one of the best visual innovations in modern JRPGs. And Octopath 2 uses it to tell 8 genuinely distinct stories across 2 interconnected continents. The day-night path action system adds mechanical depth. The job system is sprawling. Day cycle combat and the crossing stories in the final act create a payoff the original didn't quite stick. Community consensus flipped hard on this one. Where the first game drew division, the second drew devotion. Casti, the apothecary whose amnesia arc resolves in one of the game's best chapters, stands alongside the franchise's strongest writing. Metacritic, 87. Reddit's JRPG communities consistently recommend it over the original. When a sequel improves on a beloved game this cleanly, you pay attention. The Wizarding World game that actually felt like Hogwarts. Not a movie tie-in, not a mobile adaptation. A full, open-world RPG where you're a 5th-year student discovering ancient magic that shouldn't exist. Avalanche Software built a castle that rewards exploration. Hidden rooms, logbook puzzles, Merlin trials scattered across a genuinely large map of the Scottish Highlands. The combat system, combining spell combos with environmental destruction, found its audience fast. 22 million copies sold in its first year across all platforms. The Switch version asked a lot of the hardware, but delivered enough of the experience to matter. Hogwarts Legacy proved that a licensed game, given budget and time, can be a legitimate blockbuster. The main story isn't the point. The point is finding a room you weren't supposed to find and realizing the designers hid something there specifically for you. The game that almost never left Japan. Xenoblade Chronicles was saved by Operation Rainfall, a fan campaign that pressured Nintendo of America into releasing it. And then it disappeared for years before the Wii U Virtual Console, before finally getting this definitive edition on Switch. The world is built on the frozen bodies of 2 titans, and Shulk, a mechanic with a blade that shows him glimpses of the future, moves through it with a party system that still feels fresh. The Minato arts, the gem crafting, the topple launch smash chain that takes hours to master. All of it clicked for a reason. This edition adds a complete epilogue chapter, Future Connected. Community praise for this game runs deep. It's the kind of JRPG people describe with the specific emotion of finishing something that changed them. The Switch port made it accessible in a way it had never been.
Welcome to NLA.
Square Enix and ArtDink made a tactical RPG so committed to its political drama that the game literally asks you to vote on major story decisions with your party members. The result is one of the most morally textured war narratives in gaming. The HD 2D visual style, shared with Octopath, works even better here, lending each battlefield map a theatrical quality. Combat rewards terrain awareness, unit synergies, and patience. There are no random battles, no filler. Every fight matters. Metacritic, 83. But this is a case where the audience score runs warmer and the discourse is better. The 3-route structure means a single playthrough only reveals a fraction of the story. You're meant to replay with different vote outcomes. Nintendo Life called it one of the finest tactical RPGs they'd played. That's not hyperbole. This is Tactics Ogre's legitimate heir.
Hope you're ready. Forward! Damn it! Go!
Bandai Namco's best Tales game hit Switch with the definitive label and earned it. Vesperia was a Japan-only complete edition for a decade before this release brought the additional characters, story content, and voiced scenes to the rest of the world. Yuri Lowell is one of the genre's most subversive protagonists. He operates outside the law because the law fails the people it's supposed to protect, and the game commits to that characterization in ways that still surprise players on first runs. The linear motion battle system is fluid enough to stay engaging across 100 hours of playtime. The anime aesthetic holds up better than most 2008 games. Community retrospectives consistently rank Vesperia among the top 3 Tales entries. The definitive edition, released in 2019, saw it gave the West what it had been asking for since the 360 days. It was worth the wait.
Thank you. Ow! There, how'd that make you feel?
Sega rebuilt the original Yakuza from scratch and made it available on Switch, which means one of gaming's most beloved story-driven action series finally has a portable entry point. Kiryu Kazuma is a legend. His story, released from prison, immediately entangled in a decade-old conspiracy involving a missing 10 billion yen and a young girl he can't abandon, hits every beat of a great crime drama. Kamurocho, the fictionalized Kabukicho district, is dense with sub-stories. A man who can't stop challenging you to rock, paper, scissors, a woman who's convinced you're her lover, a dog that becomes your companion. Kiwami adds the Majima Everywhere system, where Kiryu's old rival hunts him constantly to keep his skills sharp. It's absurd. It's also secretly the game's best feature. Yakuza earns every emotional moment by making you care about the dumbest things first. One man, one life, infinite deaths, infinite lessons. Slow Clap built a kung fu game around a mechanic that makes every failure feel like progress. You age when you die, gaining power but losing maximum health. Beat the game young and you've mastered it. Beat it old and you've merely survived. The combat is the best hand-to-hand system since the Arkham series. Environmental takedowns, weapon grabs, posture meters. And the revenge narrative gives every fight a weight that arcade brawlers usually lack. Metacritic, 80. The real metric is how long people stayed. The Sifu Discord was full of players sharing run strategies months after launch. The parry timing is strict enough to be brutal and satisfying enough to be addictive. There's one hit point. One. Everything else is technique. This is what happens when a small studio builds around a singular, uncompromising idea and executes it perfectly. Larian Studios made the best CRPG of its generation before they made Baldur's Gate 3, and it's on Switch. Divinity. Original Sin 2 is a tactical RPG where the rules exist to be broken. Elemental surfaces interact, enemies react to positioning, and the dialogue system lets you play the con entirely if you've built your character right. 4-player co-op, full voice acting, a world built around the idea that every NPC deserves a reason to exist. The Switch port is one of the more impressive technical achievements on the hardware. This is a game that routinely makes lists of the greatest PC RPGs ever made, and it runs in your hands. The definitive edition adds the Sir Laura side campaign and significant narrative rewrites. The Red Prince, Sabine, Ifan. The origin characters are some of the best written companions in the genre. Playing solo with full party control is its own game within a game.
But I reassure you and you shut up.
You think me mad?
Mad?
Hazelight Studios won Game of the Year 2021 with a co-op platformer. Not an open world, not an action RPG, A game about a divorcing couple turned into dolls who have to cooperate to survive increasingly bizarre scenarios. Joseph Ferris bet $1,000 the game wouldn't disappoint you at the Game Awards, and he was right. Every chapter introduces a completely new mechanic. A watering can becomes a time-reverse puzzle tool. Nails become magnets. A pillow fight becomes a boss fight with actual physics. Metacritic, 89. The Switch version preserves everything. You need 2 people. But if you have 2 people, this is the best 2-player experience on the platform. The emotional core, a couple rediscovering why they work together by literally having to work together, is manipulative and genuine in equal measure. Games about relationships usually tell you what they mean. This one makes you feel it. Rockstar's Crime Saga arrived on Switch as a miracle. One of the greatest open-world games ever made, playable in handheld mode. Arthur Morgan's story doesn't exist in this version. That's Red Dead 2, which never came to Switch. But the original John Marston arc is its own complete tragedy. Marston hunts down his old gang on behalf of government agents who've taken his family, and every step closes the noose a little tighter. The 1911 Frontier is rendered with Rockstar's usual obsessive detail. The Undead Nightmare expansion is included, a standalone zombie apocalypse that works both as parody and as legitimate horror. Community consensus on this port was positive surprise. It runs well, it looks good enough, and it gives a new generation access to a story that defined console gaming for years. Open your map. Find a stranger. Follow the arrow. See what waits.
I'm a man of science.
Nintendo's first 3D Donkey Kong game in over 2 decades, and it arrived on Switch 2 as a statement. Bananza rethinks what a DK game can be. Not just a platformer, but a physics-driven destruction sandbox where every surface is smashable. Every layer of terrain hides secrets, and Kong's power fantasy feels genuinely earned. The world design borrows confidence from Odyssey's collectathon structure, but adds a vertical underground progression that keeps the geography feeling fresh. Paired with Pauline as a singing companion whose songs power special abilities, Bananza builds a duo dynamic that rivals the best Nintendo partnerships. This is the game that reminded people Nintendo can still surprise. After years of safe entries and re-releases, a brand new 3D DK platformer in 2025 was the platform argument Switch 2 needed at launch. It works as both a children's game and a completionist nightmare. Few games manage that range.